start the webcast. Right, good morning everybody, or good afternoon or good evening, depending where you are in the world. We are in a very sunny Tampa today, probably one of the nicest climates in North America, judging from the weather this week. Welcome to our webcast, part of our GRC 2014 series, Confidence in Financial Control with ACL. We've got a good program for you, 30 minutes. We're going to make good use of that time. Bit of housekeeping. You have a panel on your webinar application for questions. So please ask questions as we go through, and we'll endeavour to answer them at the end. Those we don't have time for, we will deal with by email. If you have any technical issues, also please use that panel, and someone will get back to you. So welcome. I'll introduce the speakers. My name is Dan French. I'm CEO at Consider Solutions. And I'm very pleased to have Robin Ashby, who's a subject matter expert in data analytics and ACL. He's a CISA. He's worked for JP Morgan, Campbell Soup, DuPont, France Telecom, among others around the world in both financial control, audit, and data analytics roles. So welcome to Robin.
Thank you, Dan.
In terms of Consider Solutions, we focus on something we like to call world-class finance, helping organizations attain this status. And the three real streams we're dealing with within that are helping in financial control and compliance, risk assurance, and finance process optimization. We have consulting practices that support a number of technologies. Today, we're focused on ACL. We have clients around the world in North America, Europe, Asia, and Latin America. You see some of the logos here, some well-known organizations. I won't spend too long on that, but I want to say a few words about world-class finance because it is a drive that the CFOs of large-scale organizations are trying to aim for. Obviously, in the finance function, we're trying to support the business achieve overall business results, but we're also trying to drive down the cost of finance as a percentage of expense or revenue from a peak of about 2% a few years ago, and now best in class is regarded as being approaching 0.5% of revenue. Obviously, that requires a lot of efficiencies, requires automation, and requires a lot of intelligence in running of the finance organization in a global company. Obviously, optimizing cash flow is key, and helping the business manage risk better and being the risk guardians certainly for financial risk in the organization. Now, these are four key themes are central to world-class finance, and they're going to be also central to our discussion today. So the agenda today, our objectives are to share with you some best practices in analytics for the finance function, specifically with ACL. We're going to talk to you a little bit about visibility of the financial processes and controls, three lenses of insight, which hopefully you'll find useful, and then very specifically some high-impact analytics with ACL, and then we'll come back to some entry points for deeper insight and some Q&A at the end. So first of all, I'd like you all to get engaged here and answer a question. I've got a survey question for you. So how would you characterize your data analytics maturity as an organization? You only have one answer, and we're going to share the results. So either you have no current capability, just investigating, or you're in early efforts, exploring and learning, or you've had some ad hoc business wins, and you've proven some value, or you're really moving into early maturity, developing techniques, best practices, and capability, or you feel you're at a level of mature and sustained capability. If you could respond to that, I'll give you 10 seconds to think about that and see what the answers are. Okay, let's have a look at the results. Okay, so the majority, 43% of you, are early efforts exploring and learning, so hopefully this will be very, very helpful. And then you have the second highest group are those developing techniques, best practices, and capability. That's an interesting assessment on the attendees. Thank you very much for that. So before I hand over to Robin, I just want to talk to you about a perspective on processes, systems, risks. And you'll see this photograph here. It's taken from the upper floors of one of our major clients in southern Germany. And you can tell from the look there it was early winter. And we were talking about processes and controls and risk from a financial perspective. And this image just seemed to capture it all. And you'll see here the little road entering the parking lot for the firm. And you'll see in the middle, if you look carefully, there's an electronic parking barrier where drivers have to swipe their ID card, it recognizes them, they come in, and at the end they do the same, and then the company knows they're no longer responsible for their vehicles. And of course, every 3 months, the guy comes in to test this control barrier for the parking lot, and he tests it, and he proves that 100% of the time this barrier works, it gets signed off, and the company pay their fees. But the irony is, of course, in early winter, you see the tire tracks in the snow, and you realize, how we fool ourselves sometimes about our level of assurance. And the allegory here is when we look at the comprehensive financial systems, ERP systems we use today, we tend to believe these controls are going to manage everything for us. But we've still got to check the data. We've got to check the tire tracks to work out in those places where our processes are not working as expected. That's just a thought to leave you with. I'm going to hand over now to Robin, who's going to give us some insight into the whole analytics panoply. Robin.
Dan, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here today. And thank you all for submitting your survey question and answers. That's very good for us to understand. Early efforts, exploring and learning are very much in line with what we're going to talk about today. And specifically, what we know, what we think we know, and what we need to know. And those questions, those statements and those questions are going to guide our journey through data analytics. And we'll begin that with thinking about how analytics provide insight. And there's a technical definition of stratifying, summarizing, and reporting data. We could use it as a tool to leverage change in the business process. So that's a higher level activity based on technical expertise and mastery. Then we also can use analytics as a safeguard against misappropriation of assets and as a tool, again, for our efforts to do forensic investigations. And one area I particularly like is the use of data analytics to improve the quality of questions asked by management and asked by everyone for that matter, because the better the questions, the better the results. And is it just business intelligence? Well, it is intelligence, and it applies to our business, and it is not a canned BI report. This is a formal protocol for analyzing our business, and it moves and it changes with more agility than standard BI reporting. So what we're going to see is the three lenses for visibility. There are three ways to really break this down to get to what we know, what we think we know, and what we need to know, and start to formalize our thought processes around data analytics. And grouping it by process and control, risk assurance, finance process, and optimization of those finance processes are an excellent way to start our review of data and data analytics in our organization. Let's take process and control. How are we dealing with our internal controls over financial reporting, or SOX, or data governance, or our CSA, their control self-assessments. And certainly risk assurance, our audit groups and compliance groups deal with fraud and FCPA and actual errors. The finance process optimization is an area that every organization needs, wants, and strives to do better, and that's eliminating waste and driving simplification and standardization, and certainly optimizing cash flow. And these are all items that data analytics directly can support and extend. So I'm going to turn over to Dan to give us a little bit more perspective on our conversation today with another survey question.
Right, yeah, I want to keep you engaged here. So the survey question number 2 is, what is your primary business objective for using data analytics? Is it, and you have one choice, select one, is it you want to improve the audit process? Is it you want to improve financial control and management at an operational financial level? Is it about cash recovery, covering duplicate payments, credits, etc.? Improving insight into business processes? Or is it the latter one, which is improving process performance itself? If you could just think about that and choose one, give you 10 seconds to think about that. And 5 seconds. Okay, let's have a look at those results. So the results were 55% of you are trying to improve the audit process, which I guess is consistent with the application and focus of ACL. But the second biggest number is improving financial control and management. So that's, I guess, is pretty consistent with what we expect. Interestingly, nobody is focusing on cash recovery, which is an interesting point, which is a low-hanging fruit that we can talk about as well. Okay, thank you very much. Back to you, Robin. Best practice.
All right, thank you, Dan. For ACL, and you mentioned we're here talking about ACL today, and the response for improving the audit process really speaks to me. I was an auditor for a number of years, and I understand the value of ACL to improve the quality of audits as a starting point and a substantiation point for our audit activity, and why it is the tool of choice for auditors. Absolutely. It also opens up the dialogue with the business of how can we extend this capability into the business to help us to optimize our finance processes, for example. So if we're sitting in the audit department, we might not have the mandate to do that, but we have the leverage to have that dialogue with the business. If we're in the business, we might not have all of the mandates of audit, but we have the real need for these analytics. So some questions that we're going to walk through here that will help us manage ACL analytics, and honestly any analytic program, is there's some best practices, and that really starts with understanding our objectives, defining a roadmap, and looking at our business process today. What do we look at? What analytics, if we have any, do we look at? What do we look at in our business process? What do we think we look at, and what do we actually look at? And some real questioning of that. Start small. The key to putting any of these systems into place is understanding how they will extract data and how we can extract it, format it, present it, consume it, and repeat it. So start small. Well-built, small analytics will convince the skeptic, and there will be many, and build credibility, as well as give you traction, and you will be able to build on success. And speaking of success, we need to define what that is along our way. Success in the first quarter of our program might not be what success is 2 years down the road. It's really a starting point, an end point, and milestones along the way. And we keep moving that destination out as we evolve. And it needs to be sustainable. This is an ongoing, growing process that reflects the enterprise. And it needs to change, grow, contract, expand as the business does. So it is important to incorporate sustainability as part of our data analytics process with ACL. And reporting. Who, what, when, and why. Who's going to consume all this great information? What are they going to do with it? How often do they get it? And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So I think you'll see that some of the biggest wins that we can do with data analytics come along in three basic areas: data quality, risk, and operational efficiency. And I can't overstate how much data quality plays a key role in data analytics. When we look at duplicate vendors, customers, invoices, incomplete data, we're using this tool to understand the quality of our data. What do we have that we are fueling our enterprise with? We can use ACL for our risk, our access reviews, our expense management, our user provisioning. These are all areas that might be a little bit non-traditional when you think about ACL and what we can do with it. So they offer key insights to our business process that we need to consider as part of our data analytics program. And operational efficiency. This is one that everyone talks about, and I've seen happen rarely, and that's the revenue recovery and working capital analysis, our cash conversion cycle, inventory movement analysis. These are very tangible, real examples of areas that we can get traction, show results in a very, very timely fashion to management that ACL is very good at providing. So some other best practice examples, and these are by no means the only ones, but order to cash, master data, order to cash, we think is one of the largest areas that we find, from an audit perspective, certainly, areas for improvement with customer deductions and payments. This varies widely by industry, client, and even in governments. So this can be very important in some areas, not so important in others. One area that I found that really transcends any sector is the master data review. This ties back to our data quality. What are we looking at? We look at one-time vendors, and we can combine, I'll let you read through these, but combine any of these analytics together to make something more complex and nuanced that really bring out the flavor of what is going on in our business today and things that we should be paying attention to. And moving on to the next one with disbursements and user provisioning and FCPA, again, great areas, and these are areas of key quick wins with ACL. Just one note on this slide with FCPA, this is really a data analytic. If you look at what FCPA is telling us to do, that what we must make sure, we must ensure that our vendors, our customers, we understand that relationship, and we understand our fiduciary relationship with them. And the way we do that, and the way we demonstrate that, is via data. So this is a key area for us to be able to understand. Starting from scratch. Now this is, it looks like everyone here is starting early on, and you thought about it, and you've probably all used ACL or a similar tool, and you're beginning to say, okay, we want to put some more formality around this. What does that mean? Well, some questions to ask. Do you have a dedicated team, or is this a part-time position? Is this great information that's the end result of an audit or two? Do we have intimate knowledge of the source data? This one's key. A lot of times audit teams specifically won't have that information. They'll glean some of it, just enough to get the review done, but they won't understand the specific data flows. Expertise with the analytic software. My experience in audit groups has been that it varies significantly. Having a dedicated group certainly maintains that level of knowledge consistently in the enterprise. In audit groups, folks tend to come and go. They get real good with it, and they cycle off into the business or elsewhere. Excel is not optimal. I will say that. It's a great tool, but it's not an audit tool, that's for sure, if you want to do the analytics to stand up to peer review. And is the business process or buy-in adequate? Are we talking to the folks that are going to have to make changes to a process as a result of these data analytics? And again, report consumption and sustaining our newfound data analytics group. How do we accept new requests? How do we incorporate that into a process? And where do we start? Well, we mentioned some areas just previously that would be a key area to start. I want to give you a couple examples very quickly about what these things look like. So, for example, looking at manual journal entries in SAP, need to know the data. Two very big tables, BSEG, BKPF, have similar data but not identical. They need to be combined and sorted by highest dollar amount. And then we're going to look at it, combine header and detail record, which we just did. We're going to exclude all the auto postings, which we know happen, that are part of business. We're going to verify our local policies for approval and review. And once we do all of that, we see that we have several very large manual journal entries that aren't subject to the review process, that are a round number perhaps, that here we've all of a sudden identified $2 million that no one can really explain, but it seems to be okay. And that, from an audit perspective, would be an immediate area to begin your investigation. But this is also valuable information from a control self-assessment point of view for any finance organization before audit would have to look at this, and extend that and make it an automated process. And I'll give you another example on the next slide of looking at users. You know, we look at all of the system users for SAP, let's say, and we pull them into ACL, and everything looks fine, except, as we'll see, when we combine that with an Active Directory listing of active users, we find that there were 7 terminated employees. We'll see on the next slide that those are where we think we have the right folks in there. Oh, we disabled these accounts, but they still have access to right to the payroll system. There's residual risk there. Certainly there's the debate of, well, that's the front door, they can't get in, and we're really talking about finding these anomalies here today. So these are things that are not very sexy, but very, very important to the organization. And a lot of data analytics are like that. So you're like, okay, so what? User provisioning, I don't care. Well, so what for us has been, are you performing the top 15 analytics, and are you really performing them? And here I give you a list of 15 that we have found over and over to be the top performing analytics that really, if you want to use the term bang for your buck, these are the ones that really show you what is going on quickly and are not that difficult to implement. Can certainly go through that, but what I want to do is get another survey question so that we can understand how you folks are using data analytics or where you're interested. So I'll turn that over to Dan.
Right, so those are the top 15 analytics. In fact, you may have actually seen in the first page, there's 2 pages of those, but the slides will be available to you afterwards. Survey question 3 is, what is your highest priority or highest target return business process for data analytics? So what's the target cycle that has the biggest interest or impact in your organization? Is it the expense cycle, purchase to pay? Is it the revenue cycle, order to cash, record to report and GL, anti-bribery and corruption, the FCPA piece that we talked about? Or is it another process? I'm interested in your view, see if that matches with our experience. So please take a few seconds to think about that. I'll give you 10 seconds to respond to that. Okay, let's have a look at the results. So the results are 63% on purchase to pay. That's not a big surprise. You always expect the whole disbursements piece, purchase to pay and accounts payable, to be the biggest because it's perceived to be the place with the lowest hanging fruit. Second was the revenue cycle. Third is record to report, and then bribery and corruption. Right. So you can see that. So the biggest percentage there in purchase to pay. Not. I think that's pretty consistent with our experience, right, Robin?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Good. Well, let's get back to Robin and what it's all about.
So to bring this all together, I certainly am not going to teach anyone how to use ACL in 30 minutes, but what we really wanted to help you understand is that the expertise is here for understanding what it takes to build a world-class data analytics function from a very small start to a global organization. And the parts of that are education, governance, management process, stakeholder buy-in, ensuring commitment, and having a solid roadmap. And we help you put that roadmap together. We've gone down that road before. We've seen it from various areas. So this roadmap, it identifies the existing analytics, the scripts. We develop existing data into new data expectations, those great expectations of data. Include focused process analytics and key business drivers, changes for every business, different for every area. Knowledge and skill transfer, training, augmentation. The right mix is different for different organizations. Establish this roadmap with a baseline, benchmarking, and give you an idea as to where you fit in relation to your peers and within your organization. And put in this scalable framework to provide this flexible and repeatable. This is a sustainable practice that we're building here. So thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Dan to wrap this up with us here today.
Thanks, Robin. Thank you for that insight and the walkthrough about the high impact analytics. Let's just talk a minute about some of the kind of received wisdom that we always hear in organizations who are getting into analytics. You know, the first, these kind of complaints almost, that analytics are too complicated, you know, do we really have the capability? And I think the key lesson here that Robin shared was it's all about starting small and sharing results and getting those quick wins, because analytics can be very complicated, not just in terms of the techniques, but also in understanding the data, as Robin said. But once you can show those early results, you can help build the case. And then the second piece is, well, can we just use the current people we have and give them some tools and they can do the analytics? And yes, clearly, current teams with the right core skills can develop knowledge and expertise over time. But it does require some level of focus and some level of skills transfer. And of course, day jobs always kind of trump the part-time job until that part-time job gets some real priority. So again, I think that's about, it's not just about knowledge, it's also about expertise and best practice, so you need to think about that. And then what is the business case for analytics? I hear this a lot. You know, we're trying to do this stuff, we had some early wins, how do we build a business case? And I think the critical point there is use some expertise, use some best practice to get some quick wins, start small, show to management what can be done, use that to build a case, and use that to kind of really start the whole roadmap. So let's have a look at some things to consider. So you've answered some of these questions in the polls, but where are you in your analytics capability today, and how well are you doing against your peers? How strong is the business case, and what are the critical next steps for you based on where you are today? Now, those aren't rhetorical questions. I think they're critically important in terms of building capability within the organization. And one of the things we are offering is kind of assessment and benchmark activity against that to answer those questions with you and help you with the next steps that will help be the quickest wins for you, and applying that with expertise and knowledge to supplement your own teams. So let's just review what we talked through. We've talked about visibility over financial processes and controls. We talked about 3 lenses of insight, and Robin's talked us through some of those high-impact analytics with ACL. And that entry point for deeper insight is that assessment and benchmarking activity I talked about. So we will be offering, for those that find it relevant, we'll be offering some sample ACL scripts for those top 15. So after this, if there's a particular area of the top 15 that's important to you, please let us know by email and we'll respond with that. I think to kind of pull it together before we get to questions, in fact, I do ask you, if you haven't asked a question yet, please post a question in the system. So I like this picture. It's another image that refreshes the mind a bit. So here we've got the pessimist complaining about the wind, the optimist expects it to change, and the leader adjusts the sails. And I think with expert application of data analytics, it's absolutely about adjusting the sails in our organization. So we have time for a few questions. Please ask any more. If we don't have time for all of them, we will respond by email. And if you, after the event, if you have some other questions, please send me an email and Robin or I will respond to you. Just the first question, Robin, how long does it take to become effective with ACL? What do you say to that?
Well, with ACL, that is, you can become effective immediately, but realistically, a data governance analytics program takes years to establish. So I'll say putting a high-impact analytic in place for 5 days should get you an idea as to what you can do, and understanding how that ripples throughout the organization could take the better part of a year, and building the structure and the education and just the awareness factor takes substantially longer.
So with a lot of things, there's a difference between knowledge and experience, isn't there? So how would you attack that problem?
I think the knowledge would be knowing how to run the analytic, what the data is, extracting it, and then the experience is understanding where that plays into the business process, what the optimizations are that can be made from that, and what the downstream, if you will, effects will be within the business, and anticipating some of those questions and pushbacks.
Now, you mentioned the knowledge of the data. So one of the other questions is, what's the biggest challenge in making data analytics work? And I guess that knowledge of the data has got to be a key part of that, isn't it?
It is. It's understanding your data, and anyone who's used ACL understands that a good analytic can take you 30 minutes to just format the data and half a second to run. So it really is disproportional, but it is key to understand the data and understand how the relationships between the data work.
Okay, thanks, Robin. Well, we're up to our 30 minutes now. Thank you very much for your attention, for all your questions, and for responding to the polls. We will share those poll results by email to you. If you have any more questions, just send us an email. We'll respond to the questions we couldn't get to today by email also. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you for your time. I hope you found it useful. And good afternoon or good morning, depending where you are.